Congressman Peter King of New York. He serves on both the Intelligence and Homeland Security committees. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome, Wolf. Thank you.
All right, so you just saw Donald Trump gave this new interview today to the Wall Street Journal where he sounded like he had dramatically changed at least the tone since the campaign. He suggested he hasn't thought about whether he'll appoint a special prosecutor, for example, to go after Hillary Clinton. He didn't mention specifically building a wall. Is he going to govern differently than he campaigned?
I think it would be different to the extent that the tone might be different. But for instance, on Obamacare and on health care generally, Republicans have almost always supported the assistance on pre-existing duties, coverage of pre-existing duties, also portability of insurance where you go from one job to another. So I think in any ultimate package that would come out, Donald Trump would have included provisions like that anyway. So I would say the fact that he's saying what he's going to include from Obamacare, still Obamacare itself is going to be dramatically changed. And so I'm not that surprised. I think the tone is something we saw change on election night. He's now the president of all the people. And the goal is to bring people together, but do it in a way where you're not in any way compromising principles, but you're getting as much as you can.
Well, during the campaign, he flatly said it would be repealed and replaced. And now in this Wall Street Journal interview, he said it will either be amended, uses the word amended, or replaced. It's, as you point out, at least a shift in tone from what we heard on the campaign trail. Is it fair to say he's at least moderating one of the key principles he ran on?
No, because I think all along, I mean, I supported Donald Trump and I believe that Obamacare should be repealed, but I always assumed that you would have a pre-existing condition provision in the the revision or the amendment or the total repeal. You would still include pre-existing conditions. That's always been, to me, one of the givens. It would be there. So maybe he's articulating them well, but I think he made general reference to that several times. Obamacare will still be changed very dramatically.
Yeah, he said out of respect to the president with whom he met at the White House behind me, he's at least going to consider some amendments, if you will, as opposed to maybe a complete repeal and replace. Let's talk about some other issues that have now come up.
Sure.
The Vice President-elect Mike Pence, he now takes over the transition from Chris Christie. Is that a good idea from your perspective?
Well, as far as Mike Pence is Class A. I've known Mike, since the year 2000. He was a great congressman. He was widely respected. Everyone respects his integrity. He's a smart guy. He's a governor. And obviously, he's won the confidence of Donald Trump. And he has no agenda now. He is the vice president of the United States. So it's not going to be, he's going to be jockeying for any position for himself. So I think Donald Trump sees him as being an honest broker who knows his way around Washington and yet has solid conservative principles. So I can see why he picked Donald Trump. As far as Chris Christie, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. But all I can say is, as far as Mike Pence is concerned, I have a tremendous regard for Mike Pence.
Yeah, he served for 10 years, more than 10 years in the U.S. Congress, together with you as well, so you know him quite well. Who should be Donald Trump's White House chief of staff, Steve Bannon or the Republican Party Committee Chairman Reince Priebus?
The last thing I'm going to do is be telling Donald Trump what he should do. He'd made it this far. He's the president-elect. He did it pretty much on his own by breaking all of the traditional rules of politics and getting it done his way. I really don't know Steve Bannon. I've only met him once. I have a great regard for Reince Priebus. And so really I would say Reince Priebus is the one that I would know the most. But again, Donald Trump has worked with both of them on almost a daily basis for the last several months. With Reince Priebus, almost a year, I guess, and certainly the last 3 or 4 months with Steve Bannon also. So, I'll leave that to the president-elect. That's his choice. It has to be somebody that is very competent and that the president-elect and the president is just very comfortable with. You have to have a chief of staff that you just trust, and so that again, only Donald Trump can make that decision.
Congressman, we're getting some new information on the intelligence briefings that the president-elect is now getting. He's getting access to what they call the crown jewels of classified information. I'm going to discuss that with you. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We're talking with Congressman Peter King. We'll get back to him in a moment, but first, as President-elect Donald Trump will now get regular daily briefings on top-secret military and intelligence programs. Our Pentagon correspondent Barbara Starr has new information. Barbara, you're getting some reporting on what lies ahead for Donald Trump when he begins these daily intelligence briefings, which could happen at any moment. What should he expect?
Good evening, Wolf. Well, indeed, the elements of power and presidency are beginning to surround President-elect Trump very rapidly. He is going to start getting at any point the so-called presidential daily intelligence briefing. The very same information will be offered to him that is given to President Obama every morning, the latest intelligence overnight on the latest threats facing the U.S. But then it gets even more specific than that. The so-called crown jewels. These are the details on signals intelligence, covert operations, spying operations, how the U.S. spies around the world. This is information that only goes to a president-elect and a sitting president. He will then also be briefed on the nuclear launch codes. By the time he takes the oath of office and steps off the Capitol steps on Inauguration Day, that nuclear football, the nuclear launch codes, will be held by a military officer always within reach of him. As president, he will be engaging only in secure communications, and he will only be flying on Air Force One so he can be fully protected, and he will have those secure communications. I've talked to people who have done some of these briefings for president-elects. They say a president-elect after campaign may go into these briefings feeling pretty good. They come out a little bit ashen-faced. They find out how grim the world can be and how little, as president, they may be able to do about it. Wolf?
And they want to make sure he's ready to go as Commander-in-Chief on day one, January 20th of next year, a few weeks from now, when he will be the President of the United States. Barbara, thanks very much. We're back with Republican Congressman Peter King. He's a member of the Intelligence and Homeland Security Committees. Congressman, what can you share with us about Donald Trump's national security team? As far as you know, you're pretty well plugged in.
Well, I would say the main person right now would be General Michael Flynn. He's extremely close to President-elect Trump. He is probably the one he relies on the most for national security. Also, Jim Woolsey, who was Bill Clinton's former CIA director. He's definitely plugged in. So I would say, though, they're the main two off the top of my head that I can think of. But let me just say, I fully agree with Barbara Starr, as I usually do. I've also spoken to people who have briefed the president-elect in the past, including President Obama, who actually been a U.S. Senator for 4 years. And they are invariably surprised when they learn all that is going on, all the threats that are against us, all the operations we may have around the world, what might be coming down. And and to realize they have that power and the responsibility. It's even though you read about it and hear about it, apparently when they're in that room and actually are confronted with it face-to-face, it really has an impact on them.
Yeah, it certainly does. I've heard exactly the same thing. You're a key member of the Homeland Security Committee. You've been a close friend of Donald Trump for a long time. Has Chris Christie or anyone from the Trump transition team, Mike Pence, the vice president-elect, actually reached out to you about a possible position in the incoming administration? No, I've discussed nothing about myself, but I have discussed generally issues of transition with some of those people. But I wouldn't go any further than that. No one has reached out to me about any position in the administration. Do you want a position in the administration? I just got reelected. I'm very happy, but I have told everyone who asks that question, I will do anything to help Donald Trump succeed, but I expect to be doing that from a seat in the Congress, not in the administration. But again, it's important, I think, that all of us, Republicans and Democrats. Yeah. Yeah, Senator Harry Reid, the retiring minority leader, the Democratic leader in the Senate, he released a blistering statement today on Donald Trump's victory, saying it's emboldened hate and bigotry. Let me read a couple sentences from this statement from Harry Reid. White nationalists, Vladimir Putin, and ISIS are celebrating Donald Trump's victory, while innocent, law-abiding Americans are racked with fear, especially African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Muslim Americans, LGBT Americans, and Asian Americans. Watching white nationalists celebrate while innocent Americans cry tears of fear does not feel like America. I'm anxious to get your response to Harry Reid.
Yeah, actually, that's a disgrace. That sounds like some old has-been at the end of the bar who's just angry at life, angry at the world, angry that he's on the way out and nobody cares. I mean, that is really disgraceful to talk that way. I just wish that if Harry Reid had a little bit of the class that President Obama and Hillary Clinton have shown over the last several days, it would be a lot better. We are going to be better with him gone, I'll say that.
Congressman Peter King of New York, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Wolf. Thank you.